And we're back. Happy Friday, everybody. Once again, you're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my guest, Jane Rennert. And we were just talking on the last segment about building businesses within communities, and especially starting in communities where there either wasn't much, where the area we participated the most in has been on Prospect Avenue in Brooklyn, just before, this funky little intersection of Brooklyn where, Coney Island Avenue begins, the Prospect Expressway ends, and, Prospect Park is right there. And it's in a way, it's kind of, it used to be the end of Brooklyn before, like Flatbush was its own village.
Right.
I think it was like 1898 or whatever. And, Brooklyn was like, no, we're not part of New York City. We're our own
its
thing.
own city until, my mom was a kid, I think.
Oh, really?
I think it was still its own city back then.
So
maybe I'm a little bit wrong on
apparently
that.
Terrace.
To look it up.
Terrace Ave was the end. Terrace Place, yeah, that was the end. That was like the end of Brooklyn,
so and then the rest was Flatbush.
And then the rest was Flatbush.
That's what my mom always says. She was like, when I was a kid, it was just Flatbush. Like there were none of these little neighborhoods that you talk about. There was like. She was like, there were a few little neighborhoods that you could recognize, but then most of Brooklyn was just called Flatbush. Right. Like everything after a certain point, it was just Flatbush. There were no other neighborhoods.
Were there farms?
No.
A friend of mine, one of my neighbors, grew up in Brownsville, and she just retired. She's not, she's not walking around with a cane or anything. She's still got some youth in her, but she remembers as a kid. I
can't wait till you're old, Jeremiah, because you're so ageist.
A little bit. I act younger than I am. It's going to hit me one day. It's
you
gonna
are
hit me
old.
Hard.
What are you?
42.
Okay.
Almost 43. I'm young. I'm a baby. I just act like one sometimes. But she was saying that she remembers as a kid Brownsville being. She was like, it was just farms. So no buildings and stuff. So it wasn't not that far off. But it is interesting that.
Oh yeah, that guy who fixed my stove talked about taking horses out to Coney Island.
Yeah.
Vinny.
He
tells
old.
Great stories for any Windsor Terrace people. Get your stove fixed.
If you can get him to show up. He stood me up 3 times.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. But yeah, it's funny that Terrace Place was the end of the line, and that's kind of where we spent most of our time. And it kind of has that feeling. You're like at the end of the line, the F and the G stop at Fort Hamilton right there, and everything we do is kind of right above there. It.
Well,
but it's been exciting. And I remember, I was part of the Cortell You thing too, because I was working for Graham Meyerson when he first opened up. And he was this was before the farm opened up, and I worked for Sander briefly. But they both were like the first two to put a, coffee shop and a chef owned restaurant in a strip that really just had like a bunch of bodegas and funky relics from the past, which were all, they had value in the community as well. But it was a clear shift in the tide in terms of the business community. And that was exciting to me.
Right.
And then when the same thing happened on Prospect Ave, it was even more exciting because that was our neighborhood and we got to participate in it in a particular way. And that was a lot of fun. And to that note, if you wander down Prospect Avenue, between Vanderbilt and Greenwood in Windsor Terrace, and for that matter, if you wander down Fort Hamilton between East 2nd and East 5th, small business community, less than 20 businesses in each of those sections, but the majority of them are locally owned.
That's true.
That's true. It changes the way the businesses interact within the community. When you just have anonymous business owners, there's less accountability, and there's just so much more accountability for the business people, but also for the neighbors, for the community.
That's very true. I hadn't really thought of that.
I have to, because I live right there too. So
well, we know.
I'm constantly in the crosshairs. I happen to love it, but if you don't love constant communication, that constant interaction, and that constant accountability, it can definitely be tough. It can be heavy, but if you do love it, it can really turn in, I think, to be one of the most amazing relationships. Yeah. I've built relationships that way, that have defined my life and my happiness, and it's been phenomenal. So I think it's recommended. You have to have the right thickness of skin and the right DNA to do that. but I think the end result, and we're still in the middle of it, but so far it's been great, and I think I got plans, got aspirations.
Well, it's funny because like I'm thinking about sort of Windsor Terrace and opening up a business there, and that's where we wanted to open a business, you know, when we opened Juice Box, and then
we've never really like had this discussion, like what was it for you, because you opening the wine store, opening the Juice Box, you were a pioneer. Like there was nothing else of that caliber.
We really wanted it. I don't, it's funny to think back and figure out like what was going through my mind when we did it. But yeah, like, no, it was like, we wanted it. And we really, for better and sometimes for worse, took a lot of opportunities that came our way, just because they came our way. Right. So sometimes it was like that. Although
I've been a part of some of those opportunities. I know.
So and we just really had kind of a vision for what the neighborhood could be and what we wanted it to be for ourselves, and for our neighbors.
Right.
So we did really actively sort of pursue that space. And actually what happened was, I'll tell you what happened. I'm thinking back. So Rosalie, who owned the building that Juice Box is in back then, she and what was his name? Carlos. Yep. They ran the laundromat that was in the corner space, which is now Senna. And when the laundromat closed, we went after that space hard.
The corner space. Right.
Yeah. And Rosalie told us we could rent that space, and we were going to open a restaurant there. And we'd even had plans drawn up. We had found a buyer for the laundry machines. I mean, we had done a lot of work to sort of get that space that was Brooklyn Commune for a long time for a restaurant. And for whatever reason, Rosalie, who I became friendly with, was like, "No, you can't have it." And we freaked out on her because we'd like put in all this effort into
typical commercial landlord behavior.
We put in all this effort into creating a vision for that space. And then she was like, "Well, fine, you can have the other space like right next door, the Juice Box space." Right. She was like, "I'll give you that space," because we were just like, I was so mad, like, and upset. And that's not me. Like, I am not confrontational at all. And so we took that space, and so we were like, well, we can't open a restaurant here. It's too small. And it had no sort of infrastructure for that. And we're like, well, we'll open a wine store, And so,
and you already had TV.
And we already had experience in that. We had expertise in that. We had knowledge of it. It wasn't like out of the blue.
Yeah.
But that was kind of how it happened in a funny way. And so, gotcha. And so we just were given that space.
So you were really pursuing something else.
We were pursuing something else. And we were like, you know what? This is the way to go. We'll just do this. Yeah. And it took us a while. So we did that. But I want to talk about the neighborhood more, sort of unrelated to businesses, because I think it really speaks to how the businesses fit in.
We can get to that point.
Right.
Before we take our next break, I just wanted to, you had mentioned something earlier about opportunities coming your way and just taking them kind of because, just kind of list some of your, and I think this is at the core of what entrepreneurship is being willing to take risks, even at a financial loss, but just to see, like, you never lost your home,
No.
You've maintained that. But so your first venture was TV Actress and Wine Merchants on Cortell U. Mm-hmm. Your second was...
Well, wait a minute. Remember the original Nanny Goat Hill in the Crossroads space?
No. But we didn't...
Oh, that was after.
Yeah, that's after. So it was TV Actress and Wine Merchants on Cortell U. Then Juice Box was next. You invested in a wine distribution company.
Sort of.
Then there was... We did a pop-up in a now defunct coffee shop that is now a bar, which is interesting because we did a pop-up bar, wine and cheese bar.
And you did the cooking.
Try it down. I did the cooking. And, like, I don't know, that was cooking. It was good. They had a flat top it was like a little flip lid oven, but we made it happen.
Right.
Yeah.
It was tasty. It was fun. I remember that squid that you made. Oh yeah, it was really good.
We did it at Della not too long ago. We got that beautiful squid too. It was great. And then the Prospector Beer and Cheese Shop, the Fox and the Crepes coffee shop, an espresso bar, Della. Am I missing anything? Because those are all risky. Those are all, and some of them are not with us anymore.
No, some of them didn't make it.
Did I leave anything out in terms of just like those investment opportunities that came your way where you were just like business? Not you don't have to tell us about your portfolio or real estate or anything like that, but just in terms of business opportunities that came your way, and you're just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to try this out and see what happens.
Totally, yeah, that's really what we did, and it was.
So did I leave any out, or is that the gist of it?
I think that's just that's it. Yeah.
And that was always impressive to me, like being younger in the business community, seeing you just say, you know what, let's just see. And I'm going like, what's going to happen? And you're like, I don't know, let's just try. And I'm like, okay,
I mean, look, there's a luxury to be able to do that.
Sure.
You know, and one of those luxuries for us is I think now it's a little bit different, but we didn't worry that much about money back then. And what part of that is having a little bit of it, you know, so knowing like we would still be able to eat and keep the lights on if we lost a little, you know, so there is a luxury to that, you know, of being able to do that, and not everybody can. So I feel lucky that I've had those opportunities to not worry as much. And this isn't, you know, not to say we have tons of it, but I guess we had, I don't know, I guess we felt comfortable enough to be able to do it without so much worry. But and so I think, you know, you could have to recognize that like there's a lot of factors. It's not just your personality and where you are. But it was also your priorities. It was our priorities. You were like, and I'm also not I'm not afraid of that kind of thing for whatever reason. I don't know why, but there's something in me that is willing to take those kind of risks that, you know, a lot of other people aren't. And you know, so
that's great. Well, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
No risk right now. We're going to take a little break. We'll be back with you in a few minutes. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.